Hello, everyone, and welcome to our live Speaking with Impact. Do you ever know what you want to say, yet when it's time to speak, the words don't come out the way you planned? Or maybe you hold back because you're worried about getting it wrong. You are not alone. Speaking with impact isn't about the loudest person in the room. It's about being clear, confident, and knowing how to get your message across in a way that connects with your audience. And over the next 30 minutes or so, we'll be exploring questions like, how can I speak more confidently in business and life? What makes people really listen when I speak? And how do I communicate clearly when I feel nervous? If you've ever doubted yourself, held back from speaking up, or felt like your message isn't landing the way you want it to, this session will give you practical ways to communicate with more confidence and impact. However, before we do that, and in case this is the first time we're meeting, let us introduce ourselves to you. I'm Maria, and I help professionals and business owners to become unstuck so that they can achieve their personal and professional goals. Some people come to me knowing exactly what they want, yet unsure how to achieve it. Others feel like something is holding them back and they can't quite put their finger on it. Different starting point, but they want the same outcome. They want things to change, and that's what I help them with. And this is Louise.
Hi, I'm Louise Macmillan, and I support those middle managers who are feeling a little bit lost, feeling not quite sure what to do because they're trying to replicate what their boss has been like for them. And quite often, as we know, managers are promoted because they're technically great, but actually they don't know how to put the human side of their skill set into practice. So I work with middle managers, making sure that as the jam, as I call them, of the organization, they're able to translate what those senior leaders are telling them for their team and what the team's feedback is, and translating that in a good way for their senior leaders. And also supporting them to become very unique with themselves, because we're not all the same. We are very different. And it's about finding your own way to be the best manager that you can be.
So before we dive in, I want to ask you a question, Louise. Tell me what you think makes people not want to use their voice.
I think some of it comes down to perception of what other people will think. I think sometimes we're brought up to say, oh, so-and-so might, what so-and-so might say, these people might say about you. And even in the workplace and even in school, we've been quietened down. We've been told to be quiet if we wanted to say something. And I think that stems then going through a lot in life, that we don't want to speak up. We're afraid what people are going to say. We're afraid that whether we're saying something is right, whether it's useful, whether it's at the right time to say something. So we've got all these different narratives going on in our head. As you and I know, that inner voice. And I think it stops people from really speaking up. And what you find then is afterwards, if you say something to someone, they said, oh, yeah, you should have said something. But it's having that voice to speak with. Not, I think conviction sounds like the wrong word, because it sounds really powerful, but it's just having that opportunity to speak up comfortably, and knowing that you're saying something really good.
And I think that's a great place to start, because it is those thoughts in our heads that pop up that are potentially holding us back. And we've talked about this before, the inner critic. They're neither good nor bad. They're just doing their job, which is to keep us safe, to stop us from failing, from making a mistake, from being judged. And actually, I've started to change the narrative to be, they're just checking in. So it's that moment to go, are you sure you want to do this? Is this the right thing? Mm-hmm. And I think with practice, you recognize that potential interruption, potential distraction, and you get to go, hang on a second, is this thought true? Is it helpful? Is there a better thought that would move me forward?
Absolutely. It's like that, where's it come from? Where's the evidence to support this? But actually going, what's the most brilliant outcome, the worst possible outcome, and the most likely? And if you kind of do those again, well, actually, most likely this is what's going to happen. And then you can carry on going forward. But we overthink. And we say, oh, they're stopping us from doing something, and it could be someone's voice that you go, well, actually, they're no longer in my life, so actually that's where it's come from, and the value now is not there. And you quite rightly said it's protecting us from something, but what's it actually really protecting from? What's the worst thing that's ever going to happen? And it's most likely not going to happen. And okay, the great big bells and whistles and everything isn't going to happen, but there's probably something is in between that is, and you could be happy with that.
And we do have a couple of people watching us. So for those of you who are with us live, please introduce yourself, tell us who you are, tell us what you'd like to get out of this LinkedIn Live. And as we're talking, if you have any questions that come to mind or comments, please pop them in the chat and we will be watching them as they come through. So let's move on to thinking about, well, how do we speak more confidently in business and in life? Because at the end of the day, we want to be able to represent ourselves authentically. We want to be able to use our voice, because actually everybody has a voice, even if internally your brain is saying to you, you have no voice, nobody wants to hear you. Louise, what would you say?
I think it's being clear about what your messaging is, and remembering just to slow down and take your time. I think sometimes we kind of speak off the cuff and quite reactional. And I think if we sometimes think more about what is the aim of a conversation or what you want to get out of something, and to think about what it is you're going to say. And I think a lot of people think they write down scripts so they can hold it there and read it, and actually go, just bullet point it. Or have a picture there that you can look at that's going to paint. It depends on how you're visual or how you like to write things down. But just sometimes having those bullet points about what you want to get across can help. And slowing down, thinking about what you want to come from speaking up, what that ideal situation is. I think to me, those are kind of the things that I would start with.
I think that's great, because I think usually we start with, well, I need to say something, as opposed to, well, let's be more intentional with where this is going. What is the outcome, like you said, that I want to achieve? How do I want to make people feel? What do I want people to leave with? Whether it's you're going to get up and you're going to do a talk, you're going to give a presentation, you're simply in a meeting and you're going to express your opinion, or you're having a personal conversation with somebody. What do you want to get out of the conversation? And I think when you're more intentional with how you're using your voice and you know where you're going with it, then you, like you said, you can start to build what that actually looks like, the messages that you want to get across, the words that you want to use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it's also when the words you want to use, and it's how that comes across as well. You can baffle people with certain words, and sometimes just keeping it simple, and don't underestimate your own vocabulary. There are people that can talk with big words, and most people are around them, and you might go, oh, I can't use big words, or I don't like to use big words. Then don't be you. Do what's right, that feels right to you. That's what it's saying.
And for me, it's about, I think whenever I've felt like I've lacked confidence or I haven't been able to express myself, it's because rather than being in the moment and thinking about what value I can add, I'm thinking more about the external, and I'm thinking more about, well, what will they think? Oh, they're better than me. Oh, they don't want to hear what I've got to say. Whereas when I've sort of taken the time to appreciate and acknowledge what I bring to either the conversation, the presentation, the talk, and I'm physically in my body, rather than, like having that outer body experience. Yeah. Going, oh yeah. So what matters to the external world? I find myself in a much better place.
Yeah, absolutely. You've just got to. What was I saying? I've lost my train of thoughts. Carry on. I'll come back to what I was going to say in a minute.
It will just pop into your head and go, oh yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, and it'll be totally irrelevant. Yeah.
So what other things can we do? I was thinking about this the other day. What other things can we do to build up that confidence? Because confidence in itself is a separate thing that we can actually work on, which then helps us when using our voice. And I know a lot of people will go, well, when I feel confident, then I'll be able to X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So for those of you that don't know this, you cannot wait to feel confident, because the way of becoming confident is actually doing. So you do actually have to put your big girl pants on or your big boy pants on and have a go. And yeah, the first time it might feel a bit awkward, uncomfortable, you might stutter, you might mix your words up. The thing is, unless you start to build that momentum by doing, it's unlikely that you're ever gonna feel confident.
Absolutely. It's like confidence is a skill, isn't it? In its own kind of right, that you need to keep practicing and practicing. And it's by getting yourself out of that comfort zone. So it's, I think, about, just one day go, I'm just going to record myself speaking. You might not have to send that to anybody, but at least you've done it. And then you're always going to be self-critical. That's what we are. But most people, they don't know what you're going to say anyway. So, if you miss something out, nobody knows. I remember I did my first ever podcast, and I was afterwards, oh my God, that was horrible. I missed this, and this out. She went, but nobody knows that, but you came across very well anyway. Do you know what I mean? It's easier to do that, and to allow yourself to pause so you can think, to allow yourself to slow down and, just think about what you're saying and not be embarrassed about, hang on a minute, I've just lost my train of thought. That's okay. It's just to find yourself and pick yourself back up. But the more you do it, the more you practice, the more your confidence is going to grow. And some people find it easier to talk to people they don't know than talk to people they do know. And one of my very good friends, Nick Elston, he always says that people speaking up in front of other people is more feared than dying or going for a job interview, because people feel exposed when they're speaking. And actually, we do it all the time. It's a great point of communication. The challenge is when you are have those eyes on you. That's the thing. It's the eyes of everybody looking at you that makes it more worried than standing up in front of other people. But sometimes you don't have to stand up. You can sit down and talk around the room. That might make it easier. So try not to overthink it, but just keep practicing.
So you made a really good point there. I mean, you've made several good points. The one I want to pick up on is the pause, the power of the pause. So whatever situation anybody is in, when they're using their voice, a pause can be so powerful, as well as giving you an opportunity to catch your breath, reorder your thoughts, and to just give yourself time to then start again. So if ever you find yourself in a position where you're like, oh no, I'm not quite sure what's happened next, pause. Simply pause.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it gets people that are listening to digest what you're saying. It gives you that time just to make a big breath and to slow yourself down. And a good way sometimes doing it is having a glass of water or a cup of water nearby. So that if you're going, oh, I kind of lost where I am, just go and take that glass of water to pause yourself, and then you'll know exactly where you are. It's that time just to, and also people know if you're taking some water, they're still expecting you to come out and say something else. Yeah. Because you've grabbed for the water, especially if you grab for the glass whilst you're still talking, to give yourself that space. That is really good. And also that pause when you said something that could be quite insightful, or you want to leave that message there, just to leave it hanging. Sometimes that's good way to do that.
And if you haven't got water to hand, but you still want to give the impression or tell them in a not direct way that you haven't finished, you can always say, I'm just going to give you a moment just to really think about what I've just said, which then means you're telling them to do something. So it's not like dead space.
Yeah.
And you're also giving yourself a break because you're giving them space.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's such a good one. I'm just going to leave that with you for a couple of seconds, just to let that sink in. Absolutely, so powerful.
So let's talk a bit about like when you deliver, whether it's again speaking up in a meeting, delivering a presentation, delivering a keynote talk. Let's think more about, you know, how we present ourselves and the way we speak and the hand gestures we use, because I can be very, well, I mean, I'm Mediterranean, I can't help myself. I speak with my hands. What tips do you have as far as using your voice, using your body language, presentation?
For me, it's standing up. I prefer to stand up when I'm presenting, when I'm talking, because I like to walk. Because if you're walking, then you're looking at different people, you're looking at different members of your audience. So that kind of also helps with your nerves. And I can sometimes we talk with hands. I mean, I must be some Mediterranean bit in me somewhere along the line, because I will talk with my hands quite a bit as well. But sometimes it's that it just helps that focus. It also means if you're moving your body, you're feeling a bit more free. There's nothing worse than standing up and being tense. I think if you stand still, you tense up a little bit. So to let your body flow a little bit more will just help you with that flow. And eye contact is great. You sometimes don't want to keep focusing on the one person, because they're getting a bit, why you're focusing on me. But it is that eye contact, because it shows then that you're paying attention to who is in the room, and invites them. You know, if you're talking about something that's relevant to them, and you know, you're looking at something might go, actually, yeah, that is relevant to me. And if you get some couple of nods when you're there as well, that kind of helps. So it's loosening up your body, and that's what I do before I do talks and everything. I don't want to talk to anybody that's there. I need to get into my zone, but my zone is walking around. My zone is thinking about things ready before I deliver a talk. So I can feel a bit more fluid. Otherwise, if I'm talking to someone, I'm concentrating more on what they're saying in like the 5 minutes before, that then can put me off, because I'm still thinking about what they're saying.
And that's funny that you say that, because obviously off air, I won't say what we were talking about, but off air, my timing was rubbish. I asked a question that was not appropriate at the time. And then Louis said, "Oh, no, I need to be in the right headspace." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, off timing, yeah. Maria. Learn."
But it was a thoughtful question. So it was very thoughtful. It was a personal question, and it's, you know, I know she was meaning well with it, but I just know how I was to say, oh, well, we'll talk about that later.
Which is really good. And preparation is key for like everything, not just when you're about to present or when you're about to deliver a talk. When you're about to go into a meeting, you know, have you prepared? Do you know the subject? Do you know the message that you want to deliver? Have you got an opinion? Do you need to do some research? So preparation in all areas, even when you're going to go and see a friend and catch up, you know, just remind yourself, the last time we spoke, this happened, or they were going through this, and just like take the time to take yourself back to that last time, so that when you go and see them, it's as if, you know, the conversation is continuing rather than just turning up cold.
Yeah.
And I love the whole thought of, you know, I think I need to do a lot more moving beforehand, and then getting yourself in the right frame of mind. So Louise comes to one of my meetings called Yamas Networking, and before I even log on, I'm like, okay, then this is how I see the meeting turning out, and this is the type of person that I want to be, because I'm really enthusiastic, which is great. Sometimes I just need to just bottle that enthusiasm a little bit, because it's not about me, it's about the people that are there. So
and you do need to lie down after that meeting.
Yeah, you do. So preparation is key.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't matter how much bit of preparation you do, you are going to be nervous. And I had a great conversation with somebody recently. We were talking about nerves, and there is a positivity about nerves. And I think sometimes you go, oh, I get nervous, I can't do it. It's a negative. But actually, if you don't get nervous, then do you really care? And I think there's an element of, it's not nerves, it's apprehension, it's excitement. but we're thinking that it's nerves. And it doesn't matter how many times I've done things, I get nervous. But because I know if I've got that element of nerves into me, that's a positive sign for me that I'm going to get the best out of it. Whether that's I'm being able to deliver what I need to deliver in the best possible way, or I'm going to get something other people to get out of it what they want. So don't underestimate nerves as being a positive. I think sometimes we shy away because nerves over impact us. And if you think about it, we were nervous before we did anything in life. We don't remember when we were really young, when we were learning to walk, okay, and trying that. Like, we don't remember that. But going to school for the first time, or going off to college, or learning to have a driving lesson, I remember me saying, I can't think I can do this. I don't think I can have a driving lesson. The nerves was there, but you know, you do it after a while.
And I think the first time I heard about, how you view that feeling was in Mel Robbins' 5 Second Rule Book, where she said,
Yeah,
physiologically, the feeling of being nervous or being frightened is the same as excitement. So this is where we all have a choice. We can label those feelings in any way we choose, because physiologically, they could mean a number of things. So you have the choice. Do you want to label them as fear, nervousness that might take you down that route of, I'm not going to be at my best? Or do you want to say, I feel like this because what I'm about to talk about, or the meeting I'm about to go to, or the friend I'm about to meet, I feel passionately about that space that I'm about to take up. I'm excited by it. We get to choose, and that's really powerful.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's your own mindset, as we said earlier on, but it's that's changing that mindset, doing what's right for you. And I know a lot of people have a rule, not a rule, what's it called? Routine. Before they do certain things, even if it's going to a meeting. I've seen managers, or not even just managers, but colleagues I've worked with, every time before they go to a meeting, it's some bullet points at the top, that says, this is what the meeting's about, this is the things I need to remember. And half the time they don't need to, but because they've written it down, it's right at the forefront. Some people like to just listen in meetings, some people like to write things down. Is whatever you're comfortable, what you need to get out from that's going to help you in any other further conversation that you have, and speaking up.
Do you know what? I remember the first NLP lecture I went to, and the guy who was delivering it was talking about like symbolism and preparing yourself for a situation you're about to step into. And he had a ritual that he would go through to signal to his body and his brain that I need to be in a certain frame of mind when I go into these types of situations. And it was really simple. He said, in my head, I would draw an imaginary line on the floor. And so I would step over the line, take my watch off, place the watch on the table, and then I'm in the meeting.
Yeah.
And it's just those anchors to get you into a place really, really quickly, mentally, to say, right, this, because for him, that was his ritual if he was going to go into what could be a difficult conversation.
Yeah.
And that was the way that he would get himself into a framework of, right, I'm ready to deal with this.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
Yeah. I love those. I love the little things people do like that. And as you were saying there about a difficult conversation, and I think sometimes that's what people don't want to speak up about, isn't it? It's difficult conversations. But actually a difficult conversation is when you've just not had yet. You're perceiving it to be difficult because you don't know what the outcome is. So preparation for that is always key.
Yeah. Wow. What can I say? What can I say? Is there anything else that you would suggest? And I'm thinking now more about the way we speak, because I just so happened to be in a networking meeting the other day, and a lady was talking about being confident. And one of the things that really stayed with me that I've actually heard before is when we speak, we can give away how we're feeling without meaning to do it. So she was talking about how when you're talking, At the end of the sentence, if your voice goes up, without even realizing it, you're telling your audience, I'm unsure of what I've just said to you. However, when you want to make a statement and your voice goes down, that's a statement going, this is how it is, this is what I believe. Do you have any others, Louise, that you can share?
I think some of the voice ones, you have to listen to the individual, because some accents, some languages and are all so different. So I think you just have to be mindful of who your audience are and how that perception may be, because I think a lot of things are perception. It's a bit like the whole body language thing. If someone sat there with their arms folded, it means they're not interested. Not necessarily. It could be that they're actually cold, and so they're keeping themselves warm. That's how they keep themselves warm. So we are told about some of these things because people have said they've done some scientific thing about them years ago, and I kind of go, yeah, but actually, you need to find out from the individual. So for me, if someone's talking and talking really high pitched voice and speeding, doesn't mean they don't know it. It could be that they're passionate about it, and they run out of air. So they're talking and they go, and their high voices go really high, really quick, because they've not paused enough to speak. And I think that's the element, is about knowing your own voice, knowing how you come across. I mean, I can talk really fast, but I know that, and I've got to be mindful of that. And yes, my voice can go up and down. If I listen to my voice, it's awful. It sounds like a 5-year-old child speaking. I don't know if I actually sound that to everybody else, but that's the critical thing I've done when I've heard my voice backwards, if you know what I mean. It's being critical. So I think it's, if you say to people, sometimes I can talk really fast at the beginning, then I go, right, okay, people will know that, and I'm going to do my best to slow down. Sometimes you don't always have that opportunity to say that's who you are. So I think you're being clear about yourself, know who you are, and when you're talking, and how that might come across. Some people will talk really fast and that comes straight off the head without actually thinking what they're saying. I know I've done that. You're going, did I just say that out loud? We all do it.
We do.
And it's just going, okay, sorry, that's supposed to come out loud. And yeah, maybe embarrassed now that I said it, but sorry.
And I think what you said about perception is really, really important, because you can be looking at a sea of faces, whether it's because when you're giving a presentation or you're in a meeting room or whatever, and you can decide what somebody's facial expression, body language means when, like you've already said, and like we've said throughout this conversation, you get to decide what that actually means. Somebody might just be resting their face. Some people just naturally look grumpy when they rest their face, and that's not me being horrible. There is somebody who I know who has said, I have been accused of looking grumpy when I rest my face, but that's just my resting face. I'm listening, and therefore my face is doing nothing.
And also, people's expressions could be because they've gone off into a rabbit hole. It's not that they're not listening to you; they're listening. You've sparked something in their head, and they've gone off to where that spark is. And they may have pulled a face while they're doing it, and then they come back in. And I remember delivering a talk about my own personal experience with mental health a couple of years ago. And it was to this group of office people in an office. It was a team. And someone walked out the room, and I was like, oh, okay, hope they're okay. Might have had to go somewhere. They came back in, and afterwards they apologized for leaving. But they said, I thought it's because you were talking about me. She said, I resonated so much. And she said, it totally caught me off guard that I just had to go out. And she said, and then I had to say to myself, no, don't leave. You need to go back in, because it might help you come over what you're coming, you need to get over. There'll be something there to take away. And I think that's it sometimes, is when people pull a face, it's because you've said something, and it might not be that they think you're wrong of what you're saying. It could be that you've sparked something in them that goes, oh, that's interesting. It's that thing of, that's interesting, I've got to think. But you might not do that in a meeting. But there we go.
Yeah, you don't have to pull a date.
You don't do that. But you know what I mean? And that's the thing, is about perception is such a big topic. You've got Brené Brown talk about vulnerability. Perception is such a big topic, and it's about how you perceive what you're seeing.
Yes, yes. And that is the perfect moment to now draw this session to an end. But before we go, if this has resonated with you, then please come and connect with myself and Louise, or drop us a message. We like to receive messages, and then we could start a conversation if that's what you'd like. Louise, would you like to share anything before we wrap up?
Now, all I would say from a recent holiday, and a quote that became quite used quite a bit, was, "You do you. Be comfortable in who you are, because everybody else is taken."
Oh, I love it. So that just leaves me to say thank you, Louise, for going live with me today and sharing your expertise.
Thank you. It's lovely. Thank you very much for inviting me along. And we
Oh, you're most welcome.
We always do.
Yeah. And thank you for everyone who has joined us.
Thank you for joining us.